Hello, everyone. I'm Eve, a licensed immigration consultant at BN Borderless Immigration Services. And today I'm with my very good friend, Trami, who is also a licensed immigration consultant at Doma Immigration Solutions. And she's also a legal professor. Hi, Trami. It's good to have you here.
Hi, Eve. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Mm, That's right. So today, we're here today because there was this huge update on the express entry category-based selection. So we will talk about the Immigration Minister Lina Diab's announcement that was last February 18, 2026, the new categories, the updates on the previous categories, and what this means for everyone who's planning for express entry in 2026. So, Chami, what was your take on the minister's announcement?
That's right. So this was a very much, for me anyways, much anticipated day. And I think you also posted something on your TikTok. And honestly, since then, there's just been more questions, and I'm happy to address some of the items today. But I think it's going to be just a matter of time before we can answer a lot of the questions I'm sure you also have as well. Ta Main takeaway from the minister's announcement was that there's a strong priority with retaining people who are already in Canada with the experience that is, now prioritized as well. So that was my main takeaway from that. And something new for me was the military category. I'm not familiar with that area in general. And so to dive into that as well as that defense industrial strategy was something new for me as well. But what about you, Eve? What did you find from the minister's announcement on that day?
Honestly, for me, what I was really looking for in the announcement was the information on the priority occupations for 2026.
Yes.
So, if you remember, in 2025, the priorities were set in the immigration levels plan. It was in the supplementary information, right? So, they specifically said it was for healthcare, social services, and trades, and of
Yeah.
course, French.
Yes.
And that was on October 2024. And then on Feb 2025, they announced the new category, which is education. So that's why the whole of last year, I wasn't expecting any draws in other categories like STEM or agriculture. I
Yes.
mean, even though they were technically there, but well, true enough, we just had seven healthcare draws, two education draws, and one trades draw for
Ex
occupation based, right, in
yes.
2025. So that was what I was looking for in this year's announcement. So there were two things in the news release. They said that they will focus on, again, French, healthcare, and social services and trades. So
Yes.
they did not even talk about education or even STEM. So I was thinking, are they not planning to have any draws for those two categories this year? But then, in the speech of the minister, she said something like, "This is verbatim. Will
Yes.
support education occupations, science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM." And I was like, those are two separate categories, right? So,
Yes.
are you saying that we're gonna have education or trade or STEM or either or both of them?
Yes.
So my key takeaway, of course, was about the priority for this year was, of course, French,
Yes.
healthcare and social services and trades, and either or education and STEM.
Them. Yes.
Yeah.
I
So that
totally
was
agree. Yes.
confusing.
It was confusing. And honestly, STEM, I don't know about you, but STEM just feels like it's just this word that we're just hoping and praying that it will somehow be relevant again. It's there. It's there. We
Yes,
see it's there. But
exactly.
and like you said too, when I saw the announcement as well, I said, okay, I guess STEM is making hopefully a comeback after,
Yeah.
2024. And
Mhm.
so I'm really curious to see more about how that will actually play out as we
Yeah.
see the draws start to roll out, continue to roll out in
Yeah.
2026.
Exactly. So speaking of that, let's now discuss the new express entry occupation-based category. So I say occupation-based because, of course, French is there. It's totally a priority. So
Yes,
whenever somebody asks, "Is French a priority?" Yeah, it will
yeah,
forever be a
it will
priority.
always, yes.
So there's no need to ask about that. So we will talk about the occupation-based category. And So Trami will discuss the
Yes.
categories for physicians and researchers, and I'll be discussing the senior managers, military, and transport. So we can
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, sounds good. So I was excited to look into the researchers with Canadian experience because I'm not sure about you, Eve, but I have a lot of inquiries coming from students who are already or graduates of Canadian institutions here in Canada, but also abroad, hoping to pursue higher education. And yes, we have programs, spiritual programs such as OANP that, prioritize graduate students, but it's exciting to see researchers with Canadian experience being introduced into Express Entry. And I would say for any, prospective graduate students, this is something that you could just keep in mind. For this category, you must have 12 months of full-time work experience or part-time in two occupations. So it's just two occupations, post-secondary teaching and research assistant. So when you think of TAs or RAs, it's NOC 41201. And so that's not to confuse anyone with who are working in the college system or a public college or private college system, which is 41210. So you will be working in a research capacity, likely assisting other university professors and researchers. Um, and so this will include faculty members as well in teaching research activities in universities and colleges, again, specifically with research. And it does not include college and other vocational instructors. So if your work does not involve research activities at the university or college level, then this knock will not apply to you. And then the second occupation involves university teaching. So whether you're a professor or lecturer, it's not for 1-200. Similar eligibility criteria, you need 1 year or equivalent in part-time work experience. So you're teaching courses to either undergraduate or graduate students in a university setting. You may also be heading a department in your group as well. So this does not include college and other vocational instructors. So if you are like myself teaching in a college setting, unfortunately, this knock does not apply to you. And so researchers with Canadian experience will not be applicable to those professionals. But it's still very exciting because many graduate students are able to gain experience with research and at their institution even while they are graduate students and thereafter. So it's wonderful to see this pathway available to those types of individuals.
What I guess one of the questions here is because when you say that they are researchers, um, so it's an experience that they should be getting while they're studying.
Yes, I would. Yes, that's a great question, Eve. So it should be something that they should mo most graduate students will have an opportunity to research or become a TA as part of their graduate experience. And so that is something I've told many candidates to seek out when they are pursuing higher education in Canada. A lot of candidates are already, naturally seeking those positions to find paid work as research assistants in their area in whatever field that they are involved in academically. So that is something I'm also wondering about as well. And again, I've been getting some inquiries about this new category and particularly with the score. And because it's so new, that is something I'm really curious about to see what the score, the low CRS could be for people who are in Canada pursuing higher education and likely, working within that institution that they've studied at as well.
I'm not really. Yeah, you're correct because as you mentioned, this is an experience that they should have done while they're studying. So a lot of people have asked actually if it is work done while you're studying, will it count for express entry?
Yes,
So I don't know if you have seen my video, but I think I sent an inquiry to the immigration rep's mailbox.
yes,
Yeah, and so for category-based draws, actually, you can count those experience while you're studying in Canada for the category, but still, it's not counted for express entry. So you still have to have like a different, maybe a different occupation outside of your study period.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly. That's a great point too, Eve, because a lot of the candidate, the prospective express entry candidate that I've spoken with who are looking at Canada as a potential place for them to pursue higher education are abroad, and they're looking at FSW, and we know FSW has not been a popular category or pathway at all or program at all. And so yeah, it all comes down to the specific strategy for those people who are outside Canada and to map out, first of all, which university they would like to apply to and which programs they would like to pursue. And after that, if they're able to find work related to either of these two NOCs to be eligible at all. And of course, meet that threshold, the CRS score, which we don't know yet. So,
Exactly.
yes.
So speaking of CRS score, we had just one draw for the physicians in Canada.
Yes, that's right. The controversial draw that happened on February 19, with the lowest score being 169. So that part of it was very controversial. And I saw a lot of engagement online, and it was really, really interesting because I could see a lot of our brains as practitioners, as well as, other uh, candidates, express entry candidates, just thinking about, how could a physician, whether they're general practitioners or specialists in surgery, are meeting that criteria and having such a low score. And so, what were your thoughts about that, Eve? I really want to know more about
We've
your.
seen a lot of posts also about what kind of candidate would actually have that low score because yeah, you're right, physicians, they should have at least for those who are doctors, it
Mhm.
would be calculated as masters, right? For
Yeah.
EC, just for education purposes. That one is already very high. And of course, language test results and everything. I don't think it would go that low, but I'm thinking there were a lot of profiles that probably did not add a lot of these additional information that would have boosted their score. So it was enough just being a doctor and having um, a high enough language score to be an
Yes.
express entry, right?
Yes, exactly. So, the physicians with Canadian work experience definitely generated a lot of discussion and conversations online, which I found again really interesting to just witness because when we have a brand new category like this, we're already sort of excited to, see how again the draws will roll out and the numbers associated with that. But again, for physicians similar to researchers with Canadian work experience, the NOCs I found it was interesting, very limited occupations qualifying for either. But you would think that perhaps, at least for me anyways, with researchers with Canadian work experience, it may have had more than two relevant NOCs. And for physicians, it's just three. So general practitioners and family physicians, specialists in surgery, and specialists in clinical and laboratory medicine. So obviously very specialized work and occupations. So for me personally, I'm now very, very curious to see if this will be an ongoing trend. If we see another, physicians draw that will also have maybe a score that is about 169 again, or if we'll see a much higher score. Would it be comparable to the CEC draws that we've been seeing or healthcare? Because physicians, I would say, almost like adjacent to the healthcare category. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how that will play out too.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I noticed with the new categories that was announced was the Canadian work experience tag
Yeah.
with it,
Yes.
meaning really this is really close for those who have work experience outside of Canada. So this is very similar to, so you talked about the researchers and the physicians in Canada. So I'll be talking about the senior managers with Canadian work experience. So when when these categories were announced last year, it's not really announced, but it was like a rumor. So
Yes.
because there was no eligibility requirements yet that was set last year, so a
Yes.
lot of people, mostly the managers and retails, supervisors and retail, they were saying, "Oh, this is probably the category for me," and
Yes.
they were very excited. But now that we have the eligibility requirements for this category, I mean, unfortunately, we are really talking about senior managers.
Yes.
So there's a huge difference between senior managers and middle managers. So when you say senior managers, in this category, the only NOCs that are included starts with 000. So we have senior managers in construction, trades, broadcasting, transportation, health, education. So all of them really are senior managers, 000 NOC, that's the beginning. And so in the NOC system, these roles are typically, yes, as I mentioned, they start typically with three zeros. And the sample titles are CEO, so Chief Executive Officers, CFO, Chief Financial Officers, Executive Director, Executive Vice President. So these people, mostly their focus in the company is strategic and external. So they define the mission, vision, long-term goals. They are responsible for the organization's overall performance, and really their decision making is in a way high stakes. So they decide on mergers, major investments, organizational restructuring. So compare that to the middle managers, those who are really interested in this category. So it's really different because these middle managers bridge the gap between senior leadership and frontline staff. And usually their NOC starts with a category for this specific industry. Like, for example, for finance, it's one and then zero, zero. So it's still tier zero, but it's not senior management level. And mostly the sample titles for that would be regional manager, IT manager, construction manager, and mostly their focus is operational and internal. And mostly their decision making is mostly about budget, hiring and firing staff, and processes for their specific department. So, so for a lot of people who are really looking forward to this category, most of them would not really fit into this category.
Yes,
And yeah,
you Sorry, yes, I feel like I can echo what you were saying with, a lot of clients were so excited when there are a lot of rumblings that's what I was calling it, a lot of rumblings in 2025 in the latter half. And I was just thinking that, of my clients just like you who are, like you said, middle managers or in retail or, culinary environments. And so, yes, this is such a great topic because then you can really identify just how senior these titles are within an organization, and unfortunately, it does exclude a lot of the titles that we're seeing in our
mhm,
in our clients' profiles.
yeah. And again, the eligibility requirement is that it needs to be 12 months or to 1 year of work experience in Canada within the past 3 years and in a single occupation in the NOC list. So for this category, it's just again for NOCs. So it is again very specific, very niched.
Yes, yes, definitely. I'm curious to see too, because unlike the other, you know, occupations that we've just talked about, the other two, physicians and researchers, senior managers, even though it sounds very broad, again, you said it's very niche. And when you go in to see the list, I think it's four NOCs that you talked about, and it does cover, different industries and fields. I think education is one of them. But
Mm-hmm.
then, and that sometimes I think is misleading to some people thinking that it does, like you were saying, I think that's such a highlight, important highlight in that update as that, even if you're a manager in, for example, education, it's so important to really triple check that NOC, that it does actually apply to you.
Yeah, it's very important to do that. And then next we have the transport occupations. So this is not exactly a new category. Actually, there was this is actually the third. I think this is the third version of this category. It
Yeah,
was first introduced in 2023,
yeah,
and they had like two draws for that in that year, and then until 2024. And at that time, it was just 10 occupations for transport. But now, let me just see. Yeah, there's only four occupations included under the transport occupations. So we have air pilots, flight engineers, and flying instructors, 72600, automotive service technicians, truck and bus mechanics and mechanical repairers, 72410, aircraft mechanics and aircraft inspectors, 72404, and aircraft instrument electrical and avionics mechanics 22313. So again, very niche,
yes,
and they focus mostly on air air pilots and mechanics,
yes,
unlike the previous version where they actually included truck drivers
yes.
and railway personnel. So yeah, again, this one compared to the others, this one the experience does not need to be just in Canada. It can be abroad as well. And again, 12 months full time in a single occupation. And yeah, a lot of truck drivers were very excited when they
I
saw
know.
this category introduced again. But
Yes.
unfortunately, yeah, again, it's very specific, very
Yes.
niche occupations included in this
Yes.
category. And lastly, we have the skilled military recruits. So the first time I have heard about it, I thought it was very straightforward.
Yes.
I didn't know when you see the requirements for this category, this is actually the lengthiest list of eligibility requirements among all of them.
Yes.
So yeah, let's talk about it. The easiest requirement to be eligible is that you need to have at least 2 year post secondary credential, either from in Canada or outside of Canada. And then this is the first time this eligibility requirement is included a job offer. So they need to have an offer of arranged employment made by the Canadian Forces Recruiting Group. So it should be a full time, 3 years um, job offer. And only for there are only three NOCs included. So we have operations members of the Canadian Armed Forces 43204, specialized members of the Canadian Armed Forces 42102, and commissioned officers of the Canadian Armed Forces 40042. And apart from the job offer and the post secondary credential, they need to be a foreign skilled military applicant. And what this means is actually that this foreign national has been serving in a recognized foreign military for 10 years.
Oh my
So these are
goodness.
really,
Oh
they should
my,
have this much length of service.
yeah.
And of course, because they are working for a foreign military, of course, they are not in Canadian Armed Forces. The
Hmm.
NOC, of course, will not be exactly the same as with Canadian Armed Forces. That's why it specifically says here that their work experience and training must be aligned with the main duties of these NOCs, either just one of them or one or more of these NOCs listed here. So again, very specific category. And I don't know if yeah, it's pretty hard to find somebody with all of these credentials, right?
Yes, yes. And I'm just thinking you need 10 years of, qualified experience abroad. And I don't know about you, Eve, but a lot of people just, this is brand new, so maybe that'll change things. But a lot of people think of express entry and they automatically think, okay, well, I'm out because of my age. And so, we think of 10 years of working experience in such a specialized field. These candidates are going to be more mature, older candidates. So that'll be interesting to see as well. Again, affecting the CRS score. I would just wonder
Mhm.
what that will look like too
Yeah.
for the first few
Also,
draws.
I was thinking for these new categories that were announced,
Yes.
all of them are very specific. I don't know why they didn't just create a new pathway for them instead of including them in express. Maybe they're thinking about the time frame,
Yes,
because mostly, for example, RCIP, these are specialized applications, but it takes a long time for
exactly.
them to be able
Yes.
to
Yes.
apply and get a decision on their application, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think that too, as practitioners, we think of like when I was reading this announcement from the minister, I was just I think it's natural for us to think about the rationale behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, military was one of those categories when I saw, I said to myself, I'm gonna have to do a lot of research on this because military in general is something that I am personally not familiar with. And then when you dive into it, like you said, Eve, it gets even more layered. And so really, really interesting to see, again, I was just trying to think the rationale behind it, and they referenced the new um what is it, the strategy, defense industrial strategy as well,
Mm-hmm.
which was just also introduced, I think, in February 2026 as well.
Yeah. Mostly, I feel it's because of course, world events.
Yes,
Many, you know.
yes, naturally, yes.
Right. So now that we've taken a look at the new categories, let's
Mhm.
dive into the old categories and see what has changed, if any. So,
Yes.
Tammy, you'll be talking about healthcare, and STEM. Yes.
STEM, yes. So I'll start off with STEM because I know a lot of people were again just hoping, fingers crossed, that this would somehow make a comeback and not just be listed on the IRCC website. So I know it's been categorized as renewed, but we haven't seen like we said earlier a draw since April 2024. So there's a lot of people who've been anticipating this, and in 2025 there were some revisions. So STEM has since now decided to focus more on engineering. So we think of mechanical, civil, industrial engineering, just to name a few, and then also focusing on infrastructure. So when you look at the list in 2025 compared to 2024, a lot of the IT related occupations have been completely removed. And so those jobs that were on the list included, data scientists, web designers, software developers, which we thought for a long time that was going to be a huge like a job that's going to be in demand for a long time. But as we are seeing, that's totally taken a shift in that industry. So we still see the same list that was revised in 2025. Still no IT jobs on that list. A ton of engineering NOCs on that list. I will say that unlike the other categories that were introduced, although it's specialized, we do see a much lengthier list of potential, or not potential, but qualified occupations on there. So the one thing, I don't know if this was a fun fact for you, but I did not realize that insurance agents and brokers fell under STEM. So perhaps that's something else that others something that is new for other people, but it's certainly not new to this category. So because when you look at the list, it's just so almost oversaturated with engineering professions, and then insurance agents and brokers are just plunked in there too. So that is something that I think is important to keep note of as well. And hopefully we do see in addition to it being renewed, a draw also happening as well, because
Yeah.
it ties back to what the minister's announcement was, and that is the highlight on infrastructure and certain key developments that need to be made in light of just now trying to strike a balance since the pandemic and everything else. We need these professionals. So yeah, just curious to see what will play out. But what do you think, Eve? Do you think we'll have our first STEM draw since 2024 and 2026?
Honestly, a lot of people are waiting for the STEM draw for like 2 years now,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, when you mentioned about the insurance agency, I wanted to ask you if it was removed, because I was
No.
honestly thinking that with the renewal this year that they would be removed, because
Yes.
it really doesn't match with the other
No.
occupations included in that category.
It's somehow hanging on there, even though all the IT jobs have been stripped away, it's somehow hanging on. So that's some good news for insurance agents and brokers out there who are hoping to qualify for this category based draw. So we'll see how that goes, hopefully soon. And then with healthcare and social services, like you said, several draws in 2025, which of course is needed in all areas of Canada. We are facing a huge labor shortage in this area. So seven draws in 2025, already one this year, which is also highlighted as a controversial draw as well, which I'm sure we will segue into momentarily. Still a priority. Nothing's changed there, as you mentioned earlier with the announcement, but with revised eligibility criteria. So I'll leave it there for now, and then we can jump into that fiasco
Yeah.
later too, Eve.
Yeah. So for trades,
Mhm.
yes. So basically this is a third version already. And actually this is very controversial as well. So let me just backtrack a bit. So the first version was in 2023 to 2024, and there were only 10 occupations and four draws in that span of 2 years. And then they changed it last year, 2025. So from 10 occupations, it became 25 occupations,
Yeah.
including cooks. And but the thing is, yeah, that inclusion actually skewed the composition for this category so much that they only had one draw. And I think I saw in one statistics that 57% of them were cooks.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yes.
why I think that's most of the reason why they didn't have any more other trades draw last year, and that is also why they have restructured this year. So the main difference of last year's version to this year's version is that they removed cooks from the list of eligible occupations. So that's 63200. But the number of occupations is still 25. So instead of cooks, they added butchers, 63201. Now, remember, last year, butchers was actually included in the agriculture category. So now they completely scrapped agriculture and they just moved butchers to trades. So
Yes.
that's the rearrangement that happens for this category.
Yes. And Eve, I just have to shout out to our colleague Barbara, which was exciting for her because
Yes.
she's always been she's always been a cheerleader for those butchers, and then thankfully
Yeah.
they've been moved over to the list of 2020 or 25 trades
Yeah.
occupations.
And I think because of this change, for sure, we will not be looking at because the score last year for trains was 505, which is crazy high, for a category based job.
Exactly.
So with this, again, we don't know the scores for this year for this category, but we know that it is a priority.
Yep.
So we'll see with the removal of cooks. Let's see the new score range for this.
Yes, yes.
And the last one, education. Again, it was a new edition last year, 2025, and we just had two draws for this category. There was no change in the NOCs, still the same. So yeah, not that much update for that. It's just about the prioritization this year. I don't know, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if education as well as STEM will be prioritized or if we will have a draw this year. Hopefully, because I do think we still have a shortage in terms
Uh,
of
yes.
educators in
Yes, we
Canada.
do. Yes.
Yeah.
So much to be anticipated still, even after that announcement.
Yeah. And I guess the most what is this? The change that everyone was not expecting was the change in eligibility, which was from 6 months, it's now 12 months.
Yes.
So
And that was
when
just
they
it.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Eve. Yes.
sorry. When they announced actually when they announced the physicians in Canada work
Yeah.
category, when they said it was 12 months, I was really not thinking that it would carry over to the other
Oh,
categories.
no, no, and me neither, because you would think, the rationale for that is that, physicians, they have much more specialized training, and so
Mm.
the expectations that they would and I think arguably should have the 12 months of qualified work experience. And so yeah, and it almost happened overnight, since with 2 days after the announcement, right, from the minister. And that's where 2 days, I should say 2 days after the announcement, we had the healthcare draw. 4,000 people were invited. And Eve, do you want to explain what happened during this
Yeah, so
time?
yeah, just a background. We had the first healthcare draw exactly
Yes.
2 days after the new category eligibility requirements, right?
Yes.
And yes, you're right. It was 4,000. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, 4,000 ITAs and the score was 467. So what happened exactly was that I think IRCC was not able to update their portal logic. So all people still having at least 6 months of work experience were invited.
Yes, that's right. People who were eligible under the old requirements or eligibility were still invited. And I just wonder, I don't know if you have the statistics, the number of people who were incorrectly invited and what the actual number of actual eligible candidates would have qualified from that pool of 4,000.
Honestly, I don't know, but I have a theory. Maybe that's why they issued a lot of invitations
Yeah,
because
that
they
could be
wanted
it too. Yes.
to account for like
Yes.
attrition. Not a lot of them will qualify, right?
That's true. Yes, exactly. And I think when I first heard about it, that there could have been people who were being selected and invited under the old requirements. It was just through people sharing their experiences online, and then as practitioners double checking the MI's ministerial instructions to really double check, triple check, is this an error in the system? Are our clients actually eligible still? Because the announcement was just made, 2 days prior. And no, unfortunately, the MIs were also updated under that category and for that specific draw as well. So,
Yeah, exactly. Actually, a lot of people are saying, it's not my fault, it's IRCC's fault,
yeah.
and they're arguing it. I received ITA, so
Mhm.
I mean, they were the ones who messed up, but you're
Mhm.
right, the ministerial instructions are clear about the eligibility requirements.
Yes,
And it's honestly similar to those who received ITA for putting wrong information in their
yes,
profile, right?
yes.
So post ITA, you still have to prove whatever you have in your profile. And if you can't, and if you don't meet the requirements, then you will be refused, right?
Absolutely. And so there's that question. So what should I do at this time? And honestly, yes, that is a fair argument. It was not technically your fault that you were invited, but there is that responsibility also at that point. Like you said, Eve, after you've been invited, it's still an uphill climb. It's still an
Mhm.
uphill climb until you are approved, right? So, at the most responsible thing and that you should be doing with withdrawing or declining that ITA.
Yeah.
Um, so
What
what
do you think about those people who would still submit even if they do not meet this? Would it
I
be like considered misrepresentation or not
That's
exactly?
such a great question, Eve, because I at this point I would say if you're going to proceed with it, it's proceed with your own risk, at your own risk, because at the end of the day, the MI's ministerial instructions are indicating that when I read it, it's very black and white, and that is you're not eligible, you do not qualify. And like you said, Eve, it's comparable to someone who's been invited and they have maybe just put in an approximate language test score and they're just planning to retake and hopefully meet, a certain CRS and you get invited anyways. It really is your responsibility. And, there could always, if you're not eligible and you still submit, yes, there is a risk of misrepresentation. And so depending on what it is that you are claiming, right? So
Exactly.
and having a refusal regardless on your record is never a good thing. So
Definitely.
yeah, so Eve, what do you think? What are your thoughts about that for people who are submitting, regardless?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I honestly I have a lot of consults and emails about this, and I have told them really you do not qualify and you're not supposed to submit if you do not qualify for this round, right?
Yes.
And of course we cannot stop people from doing what they want.
No,
So it is up to them at the end of the day if they want to submit. But of course we cannot give case specific advice
no.
in this video, but you have to look at the instructions really.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
qualify, then yeah, by all means submit.
Yep.
But if you do not and still want to push it just because you feel that it was a mistake on IRCC's part, I mean the portal probably did that, but the instruction is not an error. And
No.
I mean it's black, as you said, it's black and white, right?
Yes,
So I
exactly.
highly suggest that they should not submit their application if they do not qualify.
Yes, I agree with that. I totally echo that.
Yeah. Well, that was a really packed and very informative session. So we talked a lot about the new categories, the update on existing categories, and yeah, thank you so much, Shami, for being with me today. It was a pleasure having you, and
Um,
hopefully we will do this again.
Of course, Eve. Thank you so much for inviting me. Absolutely. I would invite the opportunity to talk about anything immigration with you again, even these just ongoing updates and changes that just seem to happen. It seems to happen overnight and just like that. So it's so important to stay updated. But like I just wanted to mention what you said earlier, Eve, just to really tie together with all of these updates and changes that can happen on a whim. French remains.
Yes.
So if you're listening and you're thinking, okay, well then what is there for me? Especially if you're whether you're in Canada or not, French does remain. And so in the plan in the announcement, they still say they're still welcoming 30,000 Francophone newcomers each year for the next 3 years. That is a statistic that you can lean on in light of all of the changes here that seem to be unpredictable sometimes.
But speaking of French, did you notice that the score actually became higher for French? Yes.
It's wild.
Let me let me see
It
the last draw.
yes.
They had 8,500 ITs issued, but the score was 400. If you remember the last time it was around 7,500, but the
Hmm.
score at that time was just 379.
Yes, I remember that.
Right?
So yes.
Yeah, I feel a lot of people have really started learning French and
Yes.
adding this to their profile.
Exactly. So I would say definitely take advantage of it and really, if you're pursuing that route, take it very seriously. As Eve has mentioned, a lot of people are taking advantage of that, which will lead to naturally, I think, higher CRS in general because people are maximizing their chances through that pathway. But yeah, thank you so much again, Eve, for having me. This was such a wonderful conversation to have and to hear your thoughts on these updates. And I am looking forward to our next conversation soon.
Of course, definitely.